afternoon, everyone. This is Carol Williams, WIC Help New York Contract Manager and Technical Assistance Specialist. We're going to wait a few more minutes to see if anyone else is joining the webinar, so please stay tuned. Good afternoon, everyone. I think we're going to start the webinar. Most people have joined us by now. This is Patty DuBell, and here with me I have Carol Williams. Diana Lizette is actually on vacation this week, so as you know, she usually conducts most of our webinars. So Kara and I are kind of filling in for her, but Kara and I are usually on the webinars also. I just want to check to make sure that everybody can hear us. If somebody can just raise their hand and let us know that you can hear us clearly on your end. Thank you. Along the right-hand side of your screen, you will see a red arrow. If you click on that red arrow, it will allow you to open up the question box. So please feel free to write any questions that you may have in that box. As the webinar goes along, we will check your questions and either answer them at the end, or we may answer them during the webinar, depending on if we feel like we need to stop and answer that question. And also the recording of the webinar will be available when Diana returns next week. So Carol will send out an email letting people know that the webinar link is available and you can listen to the webinar. Again, this is Patty DuBell, Assistant Director of Field Operations, and here with me I have Carol Williams, the WIC Help Specialist, WIC Help New York Contract Manager and Technical Assistant Specialist for the WIC Help Specialist. Today's agenda, we are going to go over what is a campaign, how to participate in a campaign. We're going to review your campaign toolkit. And also kind of take a look at, most of you probably already know how to add your contact information to the outreach flyers, but Kara will touch base on that a little bit too. And also how to submit an outreach approval request. And welcome to your second statewide WIC Help New York campaign, eWIC, a new way to shop. So what is a campaign? It's a specific unified outreach message that all WIC Help specialists are promoting across the state at the same time. eWIC, a new way to shop, which is your new slogan for campaign 2, has a broad goal and target audience designed to educate individuals and communities about the new and easier way to shop with WIC. So campaigns are important because it's sending out the same message across New York State at the same time, which is strength in numbers. And as you can see by this map, this is where all the WIC Help New York specialists are located. So throughout New York State, you guys are sending that message out all at the same time. what is a campaign outreach activity? It's a physical piece of outreach that is placed in your service area at locations targeted to reach individuals potentially eligible for WIC. The campaign toolkit includes outreach activities such as flyers, radio ads, a letter to the editor. Now, what is a campaign outreach activity? This is the opportunity for activities beyond those provided in the toolkit, such as promotional items, larger posters, bus wraps, bench ads, billboards. Please discuss these with Kara, your contract manager, and please be aware, please be advised that all outreach activities that include design features beyond plain text, like larger posters, billboards, will be designed by Hunger Solutions New York at your request and as time permits. So campaign 2 will run until further notice. And just to let you know, obviously during this contract cycle, there will be 4 campaigns. So we've already had campaign 1, this is campaign 2, and then we'll have 2 additional ones during this contract cycle, all the way up till March 31st, 2020. Now I'm going to hand the webinar over to Kara. She's going to discuss how to participate in a campaign. She's going to go over your outreach toolkit, your campaign companion, and the outreach approval request.
Awesome. Thanks, Patty. So today I want to talk a little bit about how you can participate in campaigns. So just a reminder, it is required that you participate in all 4 of our outreach campaigns per your WIC Health New York contract. And the way you participate in them is through completing campaign outreach activities. So this was the same as it was in campaign 1, so I'm just going to review a little bit about the requirements here. So each month, you must place at least 3 campaign outreach activities by the end of the month. 2 of the activities have to be placed in a minimum of 3 cities or towns in your service area. And the reason behind this is so that you are covering your entire service area and all of the places of need within your counties. So again, 3 activities, 2 of which have to cover your service area by touching 3 different cities or towns in each county. And the 3 activities have to be different from each other. So you could choose 2 different flyers and 1 letter to the editor. You could use a promotional item throughout your counties and 2 flyers. There's an endless amount of combinations, but we want you to use different flyers and different activities. So the 3 activities have to be different from each other. And I pulled up this same graphic that I showed last time that I think is a little bit explains this rule or requirement a little bit better. So this is an example. This is from our last campaign launch, so it's from February 2019. And this would be an example of meeting the requirements for 1 month of the campaign. So a WIC health specialist might brainstorm at the beginning of the month, thinking about what activities they want to do during that month. And this WIC health specialist thought, okay, activity 1, I want to choose flyer A. Activity 2, I want to use another flyer, a different flyer from the campaign. And then I'd also like to do a letter to the editor this month. So for the first activity, flyer A, you can see in the blue boxes, the WIC health specialist pasted that flyer or used it at community events, at tabling events, at presentations in the libraries in Schenectady County, laundromats in Schenectady County, and affordable housing in Albany. So they are covering their service area using that same flyer and kind of doing the blanketed outreach approach across their service area. They did something very similar with the second flyer that they chose to use by using it maybe at daycare centers in Albany County, doctor's offices in Albany County, and food pantries in Schenectady. And then the last outreach activity was the letter to the editor, which also was approved and was printed in a local newspaper during the month of February. So this is just one example of a typical month of campaign outreach activities. And just remember that 2 of the activities have to be conducted throughout your service area through different cities and towns in your area that are of need. So the campaign launches today, hence the webinar. So you can start submitting outreach requests as of today, and any sort of request that happens today through the end of June will count towards your 3 activities for the month of June. So the first 3 outreach activities for this campaign are due by June 28th. And again, similar to the last campaign, the count will restart on July 1, and there'll be 3 outreach activities that will be due in July. And we'll sound a little bit like a broken record on this webinar, but this is probably the most important takeaway from the webinar, is that all outreach material has to be approved by me prior to placement or order. So you can see your program memo number 8 for more information about this, but basically the reason why this is because it's for program integrity. So we want to make sure that the same message is being provided about WIC Help New York and WIC across the state, and so that all outreach, so any physical piece or item that is being provided at a community level or to individuals needs to be approved by me prior to using it. Usually it takes me about two-ish days to turn around, hopefully less, to turn around the approval by me. But it's also important to submit that outreach request, because if there's fiscal implications, it does have fiscal implications, and it's vouchered through your contract. So that also is something that happens once an outreach approval is submitted to me and approved. Now I'd like to take a second to pause to see if you have any questions about how to participate in campaigns.
No questions, Kara.
No questions? All right, well, if you think of anything along the way, put it in the chat box, or the questions box. Now I'm opening up the campaign center for this campaign. So this is a separate web page than the first campaign web page for Ready, Set, Grow with WIC. That web page is still live and active, and the password still works for that. So please continue to use that web page if you want to use those materials. But to access this campaign's materials, you'll use this web page. And I will send, after the webinar is concluded, I'll send the link and the password so you can log in. You'll be prompted before you see the screen to enter a password, and that's where you enter that password in. So I want to just take a moment to review the toolkit, review all the materials that are available to you. So once you get this page open, you'll see the Campaign Center. The first thing you'll see is to download the Campaign Companion. So I'm going to just open that up. So the Campaign Companion is designed to help provide a lot of the information we provide on the campaign launch for you, and also some tips for performing outreach and best practice. So I'm just kind of scrolling through it here. I'm not going to go through the whole thing right now, but there's a table of content that walks through everything that's in the Campaign Companion. I do want to highlight that there's information about the goal and the audience, the due dates, talked about on the webinar here. So if you have any questions or you're not sure, definitely check the Campaign Companion. I'm just kind of scrolling through. How to add your contact information to flyers, also in here. We also have topics and talking points that you're encouraged to discuss with participants or potential participants in your communities, which I think would be really helpful. So review the talking points. We pulled them directly from flyers and some of the campaign materials that you have. So you'll notice a common theme. And I did want to pay special attention to this portion of the Campaign Companion, other eWIC resources. So I put together a list of different resources that have been made available to us by the Department of Health that are really educational about eWIC. And I think these materials will help you not only learn about eWIC beyond what we've provided in our training to you, but they also include really great talking points that will help you to engage with clients and participants in the community. So there's a few of these I'm going to email to you in that email after the webinar that I wasn't able to include in this document. but I do want to highlight the Shopping with eWIC video, which is a really great public-facing video that talks about eWIC. So if you ever have an opportunity to show this video to participants, if you're ever doing a presentation, you can use this video. It's also available in Spanish and Mandarin. There's also an eWIC shopper training video, which is more educational, I think, for you to learn a little bit about the shopping experience. There's a DOH eWIC card guide that breaks down some common questions about how to use the eWIC card, which I'm going to send to you after the webinar. And then lastly, the New York State Department of Health eWIC webpage is also a tool to look at and find more information and any updates. So that's the campaign companion.
Kara, can I just add one thing?
Yeah.
Keep in mind that these are resources. These are not outreach pieces that you're going to use or give out to the clients. This is to help you as a WIC help specialist to answer any questions for any of your potentially eligible individuals or families that come to you.
Thank you, Patty. All right. So I'm going to continue going back through the toolkit. So I'm back on the campaigns here. And similarly to last time, we have a really good amount of flyers about. I'll open up a couple of them for you so you can see. So you just click English and it will generate the flyer for you. You can enter information in. There's also, this time what we did was we combined the English and the Spanish versions of each flyer into one file. So that way it was easier if you were interested in printing them double-sided. So that way you had the translation easily accessible on the flyer. So you'll see that the first page is the English and outreach approval. I also wanted to pull up a tear-off flyer. We did get a lot of requests for a tear-off version. Just take their phone number with them after seeing the flyer. So hopefully that will be helpful for you. You'll have to enter your phone number along all of those individual sections in there. So it takes a minute to fill it out, but it's a good resource for you. It's a really great piece engaging with potential participants in person. So that way when they leave, they have kind of almost a summary of different talking points that you might have talked to them about, or maybe answer any questions they think of later. And it also contact information, just like the other flyers,
including our email. Do so now. So Kara just sent out, well, actually, Kara sent it out, but we wrote a program memo about putting your personal email address, because it gives identifying information. It gives your personal name on it. So yes, now you can put your email address on your flyers.
So yes, see program memo number 13 for how to, the guidelines around putting your personal information on. It's now allowable, but we just ask that you take an extra step when you fill out the outreach approval form to acknowledge that you know you're putting your personal information on outreach. So definitely check that out. But yes, your name and your personal or your work email are now allowed on outreach materials. Of course, you could always leave this blank if you want to include no email address, or you could include an agency email address that's like an info@hungersolutionsny.org, or even your agency website. So there's a few options there if you decide you don't want to include personal information. But I know some of you were interested in having your name on flyers, so we went ahead and made that possible. Great question. Some of the other materials that are available, so there's a sample letter to the editor, radio PSAs or radio ads. So those are available to you. I won't open them now, but I think you guys know what those are from the last campaign. I also want to open the slogan graphic. So this material, or this graphic, when you open it in Word, this is a great material to use when you are developing promotional items. So best practice would be to use this as the slogan on any materials that you're creating for approval. So you can copy and save this image and upload it to those promotional item company websites. here. There's also a video, actually, we embedded it right onto the campaign website about, this is like a press release or a press event, I should say, about eWIC. It has some participants that share their experiences using eWIC and how it's so much easier and accessible for them. But I do want to note that the video is intended for your use only, so this isn't something that you want to show at presentations or distribute widely. I think those were all the points I wanted to cover for the toolkit. Does anyone have any questions about the toolkit?
Okay, so we have another question. It says, when creating promo items and artwork, we should only use the Ready, Set, Grow slogan or the eWIC, a new way to shop slogan, correct?
Those are the only two options for slogans, yes. So we would encourage you to use the eWIC slogan now that we're in the next campaign. But if you do wish to have a promotional item created with Ready, Set, Grow with WIC, that's also allowable.
Okay, one more question. Is it going to be the same login information for this one as last time?
It's a different link and a different password, and I will send them after the webinar via email. But the Campaign 1 webpage is still active, and the password I sent the first time it should still work.
So to answer, just to clarify a little bit for Emily, so yes, you'd only want to use one of those slogans. So you're either going to use the Campaign 1 slogan or you're going to use the Campaign 2 slogan, not both, just one of them.
Good question. All right. One more?
Yep, we've got one more question. So we can use leftover promotional items from Ready, Set, Grow with WIC. So you're asking if you can use leftover promo items. Yes, you definitely can do that, but you want to send in an outreach request to use those additional promo items that you previously ordered, for the fact that we would want to know what locations you're going to go to and distribute them. And also it helps to know that you still have some leftover promo items. So it helps Kara to know that you're still out there, you're still doing outreach in the locations that you're going to.
Great.
So just send in an additional outreach request. And the other thing, Kara's going to go over this, but you're going to want it, because it's outside of Campaign 1, you're actually not going to check Campaign 1 for those particular promo items. You're going to check off, it's going to be other outreach because it's outside of the campaign time frame.
Great.
So that's it for questions for now.
Okay, good. Keep them coming. They're good questions. I did want to acknowledge that, and I referenced it a little bit before, so these flyers, you need to enter your contact information in a kind of specific way through Adobe Reader in order for it to save and be visible when you send it for approval to me. So the instructions are the same, and all of you seem to have grasped it pretty well and know how to do that. So I'm not going to bore everybody by going through that process right now. But the directions are in the Campaign Companion if you forget how to add your contact information so it saves in the PDF. So definitely reference the Campaign Companion if you're not sure how to do this. And then, of course, you can always call me and I can help you.
So we have one more question.
Sure.
So they ask, so resubmitting will also apply to using DOH flyers for Ready, Set, Grow as well. So I know you were going to go into that too. So.
Yeah, yep. So if you want to use the Ready, Set, Grow with WIC brochure, you should resubmit that for approval as well. And for the same reason Patty talked about with the promotional items, it's so we can keep track of the different locations that you're going to, and we know you're out there doing outreach. All right. So if that's the questions for now, I'm going to move on.
Yes, so Krista, yes, you would put other outreach.
So I'm going to open the outreach item approval form. So this form's really familiar to all of you, and I'm going to go through it. Is now an okay time to go through it? Okay. So by now you guys are pretty familiar with how to complete these forms. I just wanted to review a couple areas that of the form that WIC Help Specialists sometimes struggle with. So for this campaign, you definitely want to enter the new slogan. So eWIC, a new way to shop, will be the slogan used for this campaign. The location section is really key on these forms, and I look pretty closely at this. So I just want to remind you that you can use community distribution. Community distribution allows you to access all of the locations on your outreach group list that you submitted to me in the fall without listing all of the locations on the outreach approval form. So in order to use community distribution, you want to do two things. You want to put the words community distribution right in the section, so right in the location section, so I know you're using community distribution. And you also need to list at least 3 addresses in each county of your service area that you are going to use the outreach, that you plan to use it. So 3 addresses in each county. It would be helpful for you to also include the county within each address. So, because I'm not familiar with every single town in New York State. So that way I know, okay, these 3 addresses are for X county and these 3 addresses are for Y county. If you have any questions about that process, let me know. But again, you don't have to use community distribution. You could just include 1 address if you know you're just going to use this material at 1 location. It just saves you a little bit of time by using community distribution. So that's why we encourage you to do so. And if you ever want to update your outreach site list to have more addresses on it, you can always send me updated forms or updated lists with those new addresses, and I continue to add that to your group list. The next part of the form is the cost of the activity. So if it is a no-cost activity, it's printed in-house maybe, and there's no cost for you to produce it, then it's $0, or else that cost should match the vendor quote that you attach to the outreach approval request. And then the next section is the checkboxes that Patty was referring to before. So for all Campaign 2 activities, you'll want to check Campaign 2. But if you're reusing Ready, Set, Grow with WIC materials, you check our outreach. Then check what type of activity it is, any additional comments, and then the bottom part is what I complete and send back to you once it's approved.
So we have one question about the outreach
Great.
Request.
Yeah.
Is it acceptable to put addresses from both counties on the same outreach approval form if it's the same outreach piece? So if you're using the same flyer and you would like to, I'll just use Albany and Schenectady County because we used that as an example earlier. So if you were going to distribute and you wanted to put community distribution and you wanted to give us 3 sites or 3 places you're going to go, Albany County, and 3 places you're going to go for Schenectady County, yes, you can use the same outreach request for that. And the reason you can do that is because you're using the same exact flyer. You're not switching, the activity that you're doing. You're using that same exact flyer for the locations that you're going to.
It's a good question. Any other questions about the form?
Not yet, but if you guys think of any questions, feel free to keep them coming. You guys are doing a great job. Love these questions.
So I'm going to jump back to the PowerPoint just to finish talking about submitting outreach approval requests. So we request that you fill these in electronically and email the completed form and the required attachments to your contract manager, me, for each outreach approval request. So the attachments that are necessary for outreach requests is the completed outreach request form, number 1. Number 2, a mock-up or photo of the actual outreach item with text. So that might be the flyer that you input your contact information for, or a mock-up of a promo item. Number 3, the vendor quote for the cost. So if there's a cost to producing a promo item, it would be the quote for that. The English translation if it's in another language. So because of the change we made for this campaign, any of the additional language flyers or the Spanish flyers have the English translation version right in that PDF document. So it's all linked in there together for you. And the universal attachment form is a form that actually I'll be sending quite soon when we get ready to have the promo item, or sorry, the incentive items delivered on behalf of Hunger Solutions New York to your agencies. So I won't even get into that form today. I'll explain that once you actually need to know about that form when those items arrive at your agencies. What should I do with Ready, Set, Grow brochures from DOH? So this question was asked earlier, but I'll just reiterate that we really do recommend that you use campaign outreach materials produced by Hunger Solutions New York moving forward because of the ability for you to put your agency's contact information directly on them. But if you do wish to use a Ready, Set, Grow brochure and attach your business card or put a sticker with your contact information on the form or on the brochure, you can do that, and you'll want to submit an outreach approval request for that. Another question that I thought I might get is that can I continue to use Campaign 1 Ready, Set, Grow with WIC materials? So the Hunger Solutions produced Ready, Set, Grow with WIC materials. Yes. In fact, those materials were designed to support you throughout this entire contract. There's some flyers in there that you might find that are actually better fit for some of what you're going to be doing over the next couple months during this campaign. For example, like the grandma's flyer, I don't recall that there's an eWIC flyer with grandmas. So if you're doing an event with grandparents or doing a presentation to grandparents, use that flyer. Please do not hesitate to use Campaign 1 materials, but they still need to go through an approval process. So you do still want to submit them to me for approval prior to placement, and you'll check other outreach on the outreach approval request form. And I do want to note that using Campaign 1 materials won't count towards the required monthly outreach activities. And that's because we're talking about eWIC now, and we really do want to push the eWIC materials out there. So please, use the eWIC materials throughout your communities, and if you identify any other places you want to use Ready, Set, Grow with WIC, you're welcome to. And then last but not least, in case you missed it earlier, all outreach material has to be approved by me prior to placement. So if you ever are not sure if something counts as outreach or if you have a question about it, please do not hesitate to ask me if it's allowable, because this is a really important policy that we stand by here at Hunger Solutions. Do we have any other questions?
We'll give you guys a few moments. As of right now, I'm not seeing any questions, so
Okay.
We'll give you a couple seconds. If you'd like to ask any last-minute questions, we would love to answer them for you.
As we wait, I'll just say that I hope you guys are excited to talk about eWIC as we are. The materials are really great and fun, and this is a really exciting new development for WIC that I think a lot of communities, it's going to take a long time for people to learn that eWIC is here. And I think the more you can get out there and talk to groups and be out in your communities educating people about eWIC, the faster that news is going to spread. And WIC checks are a thing of the past, so it's pretty exciting.
So as of right now, we don't have any more questions, but if you guys think of questions as you're taking a look at the outreach or the campaign companion, feel free to reach out to Kara. She'd be happy to answer any questions that you may have. And I think we could wrap up our webinar today. Thank you to everyone that joined us, and thank you for all the great questions. And reach out to Kara if you have any additional questions that you may need answered.
And I'll send the link to the campaign materials right away so you guys can start looking at them.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great day.
Thank you. Take care.